Well, hello, welcome to the channel and thanks for joining me. This is part 2 of the JVC RC680V that we're working on at the moment. We've got to the stage now where everything was stripped down and cleaned, ready to put back together, but we were just waiting for the new belts. So hopefully in this episode we'll be able to reassemble the whole thing and just see if we can get it to work. But if you haven't seen part 1, please go back and check that first. We've got all sorts of stuff in there regarding how it was taken apart and how we cleaned and serviced the component parts. But anyway, let's crack on with it, and here we go for part 2. Okay folks, it's time to take a quick summary. So I've cleaned the internal part of the front chassis with the speakers and also cleaned and lubricated the wavelength selector switch on the radio board. So that's okay, and that's ready for the rest of this to happen now. So just a quick recap then. We have cleaned and polished up the record and play 5-pin DIN socket. We've cleaned and just basically dried off now all the transport actuator mechanisms. They're safe, they're just drying out, and we'll grease those with the collars when the time comes. We've got the tape mech in here which has been cleaned. We've put some rubber renew and treated the pinch roller. We've cleaned the heads, we've cleaned the capstan, we've oiled the motor, lubricated the mech, and basically got that ready for when the belts arrive. We've cleaned the board over, we've cleaned and lubricated the switches for the mono and stereo and the volume parts and the function switch, checked over the capacitors visually, no sort of leaking or bulging or anything obviously nasty there. We've also just tested a cursory ones, we've done the power ones and tested various other ones throughout the board just to get a general feel, and to be fair, these caps that I've tested all seem pretty good, as did the transistors. We've also just got the strap there that links the main board to the cassette chassis. And here are the two belts which are now on order. I've ordered some replacement ones. They shall be with me very soon. So that's basically where we're at. Everything's clean and tidy. Screw wise, we've got the ones that hold the mechanism in itself. Then we've got the rear casing screws there. Then these are the ones that hold the board to the actual chassis. And then these three are the ones that restrain the collars for the cassette mech actuators. So everything is present and correct, cleaned, tidied, tested, ready to go. And the next thing will be the assembly, and we can't do that until the belts arrive. So we'll have a quick fade now. And yeah, now's the time to maybe just remember to hit that like button, and please subscribe if you haven't already. That'd be ace. And next time you see me, we'll have some new belts next to these ones. Okay, well it's the next day and I'm delighted to say that the belts have arrived. Deck Tech, a brilliant, great overnight service there for the belts. And I thought, oh, what we'll do first, I think, is get the belts on and get the mech properly finished, and then it should just be a case of bolting everything back together again. The only problem I've just realised actually, and I'm surprised I've not done this sooner because I was so busy checking out the condition of the movements, the transport controls, the mechanisms, the rollers, the springs, everything else. I've actually only just realised that the motor itself is seized. So it's not turning at all. So no wonder it was making kind of horrible noises. So I've got to try and unseize this motor. Hopefully we'll be able to do something with it. Otherwise it's going to be a case of trying to find a replacement and then going from there. So that's kind of scuppered things a bit, because obviously the next logical step would literally have been to have put the belts on, and really everything else is ready to go. So it should have just been a straightforward Lego assembly job, and now we've got to try and figure out what's going on with this here motor. All right, let's just give that some thought for a moment. I've just set the power supply. Yeah, getting about 350 to 400 milliamps. And I'm just going to push my luck and take it up to half an amp. Yeah, it's just dropping the voltage. It's becoming current limited. So it's basically not going to turn, not electronically at least. And it's proper seized, I've got to say. That really is jammed on there big time. So what does that mean then? We're going to have to lose the motor, I think. So I think I'm going to just line everything up, and to that end I'm just going to put a mark down there and put another one across there. Just helps us to align everything back up later. And I am now hopeful that if I can at least get the motor off, tiny little screws. Yeah, so we thought we were in a position where we were about to put all this back together again. But alas, just like Humpty Dumpty, there may be no putting this back together for a little while. Right, I think what they're all tied by this multi-plug onto that leaf switch. Okay, well the motor should come away now, like so. But yeah, it looks like it's properly seized, so that ain't going to turn at all. Tricky. I've literally just screwed the motor mounting plate back onto the chassis, just so as we don't lose it. And that's a couple of other screws we don't need to lose as well. And on here I've just marked the red and yellow. They are marked positive and negative on the casing anyway, but this is all sort of linked together via the multi-plug here with the leaf switch. So I thought if I can just get this away, I can just go ahead and get the motor away for the moment. There we go. Just cut some of this tape away. Okay, like so. Well, that's that out. Okay, now I'm guessing this pulley's going to have to come off without breaking it. Okay, well that's a start, so we'll keep that safe somewhere. Okay, I'm going to do something I probably shouldn't do now, which is just gently get some grips on the spindle. There we go. There she is. There she is. There she is. That's got her. Doesn't feel too bad either. Doesn't feel like there's any flat spots in there. So I'll just get some oil. In fact, this can go get right in there this time. Let that soak for a minute. I really want to just spin that up. Marvellous. See what happens if we actually try and just hook some voltage up now. And I'm going for it. I'm giving it the full, the whole 9 yards or the full 12 volts, one of the two. Nice. Can even feel a little kick. Can even feel a little kick there as it's starting to. Nice. Lovely. That working a treat now. So let me just demonstrate that for you a second. And to that end, I'm literally just going to put a little bit of tape. Not expecting this to stay on, really, but there she is. Lovely. It's actually a very hot day today. That fan could be just the job. There, and she's silent. Gorgeous. Lovely. There we go then. Well, that's a bit of a relief, I don't mind telling you. It's a 12 volt, which is fairly high voltage actually for such a small unit. You know, you might expect that on something like a RC838 or, you know, a RCM70 or something like that. But to be honest, it's a very small, compact 12 volt motor. and I was a bit worried about whether or not I'd be able to find a spare. And anyway, that's good. So we've managed to free that up. So I'm going to wipe this down, get the pulley back on. Like a fool, I didn't actually measure the height of the pulley, so that's going to be fun. But we'll measure that somehow, go back and see an old bit of footage or a photo or something. We should be able to set that pretty much right. We can always adjust it once it's in anyway. So the next stage then is to get this back into the chassis and try and get these belts on. Okay, well the cables are soldered back on, so I'm just going to try the motor now, make sure those connections are okay. Now I could check them here, but actually I want to make sure the connections themselves are decent. So we've got, let me just see, positive is that one and the negative was the yellow, so with a bit of luck this should fire up. And there she is. Yep, there's that little kick. Beautiful. Nice. Pleased with that. Good stuff. So we've sorted that little problem at least. Right, let's get this little carriage back off now. If you remember, we put this back on just now to save us losing parts, but as it happened we fixed it quicker than we expected. So we can go ahead, get that back in now, get it all back together again. So we've managed to get the first belt on by depressing the little plunger on the side and pinning it down with a little screwdriver, tucking it over and then through a tiny pulley on the bottom of the flywheel and then around the pulley here. Now the next one is coming down over the motor shaft. There we go. That feels about right. Okay, so now that that's working, let's power this back up again, I think, and see if we can get the actual mech to work, see if we can get the actual spindles to turn and stuff like that, I think. Of course it's permanent voltage because we're not going through the leaf switch on this, we're just going through the motor. So okay, so what have we got here? Play. Yep, play's working. That's the capstan and the pinch rollers turning just there. Stop is that one. Yep. Okay, so we should have rewind, fast forward and play. They should all be working. Obviously pause takes the pinch roller off the capstan, and that seems to be set all right. You can see the belts doing their thing now, and precision belts and deck tech, so they're not running out or warbling or anything like that. Lovely. Well, the proof of the pudding will be in the eating, as they say, so I think what we'll do now is just have a bit of a tidy up of some of these miscellaneous tools that we were using for messing about with the motor, and I think we start putting it all back together again at last. Okay, well I think we've done all we realistically can for this now on the inside. I've made a couple of notes as to some of the key parts to go back together and anything I might need to remember. For example, soldering the mic cables back on and stuff like that, and where the position of the earth strap went from one board to the mech and things. So just a bit of an aid memoir as we go. So I think the first thing to do then is to get the case back and start putting it all back together. Righto, so I've got the case up on some foam again, just to protect the face whilst it is face down, and also to allow the cassette door to open, because quite often with the mechanisms you need that to be open to reinsert the mech correctly. Now this is a good time if you wanted to service, clean or re-lube the actual eject door, but it's working really nicely as you can see, so no need to on this occasion. Right, okay, so we've got the mech here, and approximate orientation was thus. So we'll figure out just loosely first where that goes, like so. And this is where you look at things like, for example, perhaps the orientation of the cableways. So just go back to any videos or photos that you may have taken beforehand. We've also got to think about things like the strap as well now and where that goes. So there was an earthing strap that went from the cassette mech to the board, and I have that one marked up, and that goes on here. So next up will be our transport controls, and I'm just going to put the tiniest little bit of grease on the runners. Nothing too heavy, but there would have been a touch on there before. Just a little something to aid with the movement, but also take up any little bit of slack perhaps. So anyway, there we go. That one's marked left and right rather handily, like so. Right, this is where the fun starts. If you remember, there we go. I'm just picking these up in any old order, but obviously they are numbered, so that will help us. And I'll press them fully home in a minute. Just don't want to disturb anything at the moment. Okay. And now a bit more grease on the other side. And to be honest, a little bit of silicone spray or silicone grease is fine. That won't hurt the plastic. Okay, we'll try that. Okay, all seems pretty good. Right, okay, I think the next job is probably going to be to connect up the ribbon cables. And I'm going to put the DIN plug one on, because that was kind of out of sight last time, so it could potentially be a bit tricky to reconnect when it's upside down. Could be tricky to reconnect when it's the right way up, to be fair. Okay, they're fully in, nice and square. Good. Like I say, that would have been a bit of a pain, to be honest, the other way around. So, next one we've got then is the cable from the SEA equalizer. It's getting a bit tricky already. Reconnecting is always more difficult. Right, the SEA cable is in. The DIN socket is in. But of course we can't slide that yet. We've also got the, when the time comes, the radio one to connect as well, just there. But I'm thinking the next thing really is just going to have to be to get these microphone cables soldered in. And a slight change of plan here, I think. I'm going to actually take this DIN socket one back off. Bit annoying, but I just think the weight of that thing flapping around on there, if I'm not careful, I'll end up damaging the soldered end of the ribbon board whilst I'm trying to do this bit. Okay, well that's the microphone cables soldered back. Don't mind telling you, that was a little bit tricky. But I'm going to run them in the guides there if I can. Alright, let's get this DIN socket slid back in. Right, okay, so just checking for location of everything now. So with a bit of luck, well, that dropped in over the top of a pin just there somewhere. There he is. Right, so everything else, that's it, is lining up nicely. So we've got the radio to attach. Okay, the radio board is attached. The heads are attached. We put a little dot on the top of everything just to remind us which was the right way up. And then referring back to our little notes if we need to as well, we can now put these screws back in. Not too tight at first, just get them in position. So if any of them don't feel like they want to go in all the way, you can always just gently move, wiggle the board. To be fair, JVC stuff is generally very well made. And the tolerances are good and tight. Right, so that's the earth strap for the chassis, for the tape. And I now know that it should well be lined up because all three so far are in okay. There's our fourth one with the dot that we made. Right, so everything's together, multi-plugs are all in, speakers just need to be connected over here, and obviously we've got the power to connect as well. Now it's a bit fiddly on this one because there's a tiny little little 2-pin multi-plug for the power, and ideally at this stage this is when we want to be sort of testing it out, but I don't think we're going to be able to realistically. It just literally is a case you're not going to be able to get the pins in there or any power realistically, not whilst we're standing it up and testing it. So I think what I'm going to do is just go for it, get the back on. So a quick cursory check, the motor, there we go, the motor and the leaf switch multi-plug is in, the speakers are in, the chassis wire for the mech earth is connected up, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 screws are all in there, the mech screws are where they need to be, the transport controls are in, DIN socket is in, heads are connected, radio board is connected, we've checked the motor already. So yeah, okay, let's give it a go. Hopefully, fingers crossed, it'll work for the first time in who knows how many years. It's a little bit of a shame that the motor adjustment speed, which we may or may not need, is just there, but it's, as I say, it's quite a tricky one to power up without actually putting the back on, which might preclude us from getting to that screw very easily. So let's get the back on anyway and see how we get on. I've got to say that the power connector on that is the smallest and fiddliest one I can remember in a long time. Good stuff. Right, I'll put a token couple of screws in the back case just to hold it, but other than that we're good to go. Rightio, I've literally just uprighted it and plugged it in. So let's see if it works. Right, I'm getting hiss, but I think that's the lights. So let me just kill the lights for 1 second. Yeah, perfect. Good, well the radio still works, so we've not totally broken anything. I need to put the lights back on. Okay, yeah, because that FM signal really does get messed up by these lights I've got in here. Right, okay, now obviously I'll bring you in for a proper look in a minute if it works, but like I say, oh hang on, we've got to put the switch back in as well, haven't we? There she is. Yes, that works okay. That's a relief. Right, let's get a tape. Oh my lord, fingers crossed, because we don't know if this even works at all yet. The motor was seized, the belts weren't right. Here we go. Nope, nothing. Stop. Fast forward. Hang on. There we go. Stop. rewind. Okay, now there is a bit of a noise from it. I did notice, and I might actually have to go back and do it yet, that the little float plunger does kind of drag, and I know it's supposed to, but it seems like such a cheap, nasty mechanism that it did seem to be a bit noisy. But let's just at least see if it plays a tape. Oh dear. Oh dear. Well, it rewinds. Sorry, fast forwards. It rewinds now. Play. Okay, well that sounds atrocious. So a little bit back to the drawing board with this for a minute, I think. Just get this mech out and see if we can work on that some more. I don't know why it's dragging like that. That's just horrendous. I think it might well be something to do with the flywheel. I did notice when I was working on it originally just now that, and changing the belts, that the flywheel was eccentric. It was kind of running out, and I think somebody before me hadn't figured out how to get the belts off and has tried prying it and bending it, and yeah, it's kind of it's running kind of eccentrically. It's kind of wobbling like that as it plays, and that's giving us this. And obviously it's very slow as well. The speed we can adjust easily enough. It's whether or not the speed is related to the motor or whether it's to do with extra drag. Now the belts aren't too tight on this. They're really nice actually. They're brand new Deck Tech belts, and they were sized specifically for this particular exact model here. And so it's not the belts. So yeah, a bit frustrating really. I think it might be the actual mech has seen better days, which would be frustrating. The only thing to do now is to open it up. I think I might do that at a later date actually. You can go and yeah, I'm just sort of talking, rambling on here while I'm thinking about it. I think in all honesty at the moment I might not even finish this. I might just give it a clean up and do like a little reveal shot of this. But we've seen inside. We know what it's made of, what it consists of, and we know. I'll tell you what, if nothing else as well, we did clear up the noises, didn't we? There was making some, like, we thought might have been bad caps, but that's gone since we've cleaned everything down. So yeah, I think what I might just do is clean this up, take a little bit of B-roll for you guys so you can actually see the see this thing, because it is very rare. It's a lovely looking thing. The radio's working perfectly, and we know that the clutches and everything else are okay on the reels and on the tape mech itself. It's just a case of whether or not we can get it running smoothly a bit later on. But to be honest with you, that does mean literally stripping the whole thing back out, trying to fashion up and sort of jerry rig the power to it, and seeing if we can get it running a tiny bit better here and a tiny bit better there. So I'm quite inclined really just to leave it there for now as a project kind of in progress. I think we've done quite a little nice job on this. We've got cleaned the insides out for sure. We've cleaned up all the switches, got the radio and everything nice on it. Had it all apart, had a good look inside, see how it's made, and yeah, we kind of, you know, shown how to replace the belts should anybody else have one and want to do the same. It's just a case that this one's not running terribly well, I think, because of probably issues with the mech itself, rather than anything else. So to that end, I think we might wrap it up here for now, and I might come back. If you're interested, guys, do let me know in the comments if you're interested to see if we can actually fettle this and get it running properly. So far we've got it running, you know, to a degree, and it's okay, but it might be one of these that we need to just give it a revisit later on. But anyway, thanks for watching. We don't normally kind of give up, as it were, halfway through, but quite frankly this was in so many bits earlier today. To get the whole thing put back together properly and back in one piece is just nice. It's tidy, it's been through, we know the switches are cleaned, we know the head, the caps and the pinch roller are cleaned, everything's been lubed, the switches are good, speakers are good, all the amp section is okay. So yeah, it's just an issue with the friction and the I think the flywheel running out of true or something. So that's going to be an ongoing job. Anyway, listen, I'm talking on long enough, but thank you very much for watching. I shall see you soon. All the best for now. Bye bye.